Death. It's the one biggest promise in video games. We've all experienced that irritating screen that tells us that our journey has come to an end. But it's often not the screen, but the sounds that have us lying awake at night.
Your flame dies here.
Sam from Gamers Review Games here, and this is 10 infamous video game death sounds you can't unhear. Kicking things off with the inspiration for this video, in at number 10 is LEGO Star Wars the video game. We all remember the joys of sitting down in front of the PS2, switching on a TV that requires more smacks than that Mad Catz controller that's saved for player 2, popping in the LEGO Star Wars disc only to have your little brother come in and whine about wanting to play. So reluctantly, you give him that Mad Catz controller and only let him play the boring characters. You know, the R2s, C-3POs, the non-Jedi. Then you would convince him that jumping off the edge would yield some extra special studs. Only, to his horror, his character shatters into pieces with a simple, "This sound is memorable enough," but the game went a step further with unique sound bites for the 59 playable characters. This amounts to many moments of absolute comedy gold. Especially when playing as a certain little green Jedi. The fact that most of these sounds were taken from the movies as well just makes them all the more fitting, even if they can be a little goofy at times. We are going back a few years for this next entry with Pacman. Everyone knows Pacman. We all remember the iconic waka waka sound he makes as he trudges around avoiding ghosts. No matter which version or iteration of the game you played, a few sounds stay the same. The aforementioned waka waka and that iconic descending arpeggio of blips and beeps. You know the one that eventually comes for us all. Picture this, you're at the arcade, one life left on an epic run, and a crowd of neighborhood kids watching your every move. You're on the cusp of greatness, about to etch your name onto the leaderboard. Then, in an instant, that simple sound rings out.
Oh, hell no.
It perfectly encapsulates the shared feeling of letdown, the quiet disappointment that washes over both you and your audience as the high score eludes you all. Death, and then silence. It doesn't help that Nintendo thought it was a good idea to make a version of the game where you face off against 98 other players, just so that you can hear that sound much more frequently. Now I can get the same feeling at home? Thanks, Nintendo.
Thank you for that.
We've gone down under for our next pick with Crash Bandicoot.
Crash Bandicoot?
Whether you played the original trilogy back on the PS1 or the remakes with the Insane trilogy or even Crash Bandicoot 4, it's about time, because there have absolutely definitely only been 4 games.
How many times have you beaten this clown anyway?
3.
Really? Only 3? Funny. Seemed like more.
One thing never changes. This mischievous marsupial may be able to foil the plans of Dr. Neo Cortex, but every failed attempt results in some cartoonish masterpiece of a death animation involving that one memorable word. For a supposedly mute Bandicoot, Crash seems to like yelling this word a lot, especially if you're as bad at the game as I am. I mean, the high road alone will have the Bandicoot's vocal cords strained for the amount of times he yells and screams as he falls to his death. Crash's death sound is the perfect balance of failure and funny. A way to remind you that you may have messed up this time, but you can always try again. Just don't run out of lives, got it? Next up, we have The Binding of Isaac, a roguelike that's as charming as it is utterly soul-crushing. You descend through a series of increasingly disturbing basements, fighting mutated poop monsters and crying yourself into oblivion. The game's premise alone is a gut punch, and the deaths are just as brutal. You might be having the run of a lifetime, a perfect build, tons of hearts, and all the best items, when you run into a boss you've never seen or a room with more enemies than a small country. Suddenly, that painstakingly familiar sound hits. It's chilling, it's melancholic, it's the sound of Isaac coming to his end. It's a simple, haunting, childish whimper that stays stuck in your memory. Whether you are playing the original or Rebirth, that haunting youthful sound will make your heart sink, even if only for a moment. There's no dramatic music, no witty villain monologue, just the quiet echoing sound of your own failure. It's a sound that perfectly captures the fleeting nature of success in a roguelike and the quiet desperation of starting all over again, knowing full well you'll probably be hearing it again in another 5 minutes. In at number 6 is Uncharted 2. Nolan North did a fantastic job bringing Nathan Drake to life with all his over-the-top wit, fun but cocky personality, and not least by his array of grunts and exclamations. Surely he'd have to win the award for number of no's in a video game.
No. Get up here, let's go. No.
Whilst there are endless accolades that could be given for the game's action set pieces or the stunning visuals, its sound design really helped to set it apart from other titles. And with Drake's guttural screams, we can see why. This one is a bit different, as most deaths will elicit no response from the smart-mouthed treasure hunter, or occasionally just one of his companions will yell,
No!
But if at any time Nathan Drake loses his grip or falls off a cliff, that aforementioned guttural scream, or in some cases another round of no's, can be heard shouted at the top of his lungs before closing out with the sound of a duduk playing an ominous melody that is equal parts unsettling and comforting. I don't know how, it just is. The melody will be stuck in your head, especially if you played the game on brutal difficulty. And admit it, we all took way too long on the opening train sequence just so that we could hear Nathan Drake yell again and again.
No!
Or was that just me? In at number 5, we all know that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was a divisive game. Back in 2017, there were many debates as to whether Breath of the Wild could actually be seen as a Zelda game, with many traditional Zelda fans citing the lack of story and dungeons as key reasons that it just does not compare. However, there is no denying that no matter which side of the debate you sit on, Breath of the Wild is at times a challenging game.
This is too hard.
Because of the weapon durability, as well as some of those difficult encounters, we all saw more of the game over screen than we initially anticipated. Whether it was being wiped out by the Guardians or Minotaurs, which are apparently pretty easy to defeat if you're not me, or Link losing his grip and falling to his demise, the sound of Link failing over and over again is both tragic and inspiring. Link may start off giving a sort of grunt or yell, but it's the little musical chime that really sticks in your head. It's equal parts "you failed" and "try again," all wrapped up in a couple of notes. Doom is up next on our list. No, not that Doom. That's better. Doom was known for its blood-curdling violence, horror-esque aesthetic, and fast-paced, adrenaline-fueled gameplay. In this era of gaming, Doom was an absolute masterpiece, and its advancements with 2.5D graphics made it an FPS that was pulling the genre into the future. The addictive gameplay loop mixed with the groans and growls of the demons and monsters made for a compelling experience. But it's not the monsters that will have you tossing and turning at night. As you fight the unending array of enemies, you will eventually succumb to the onslaught, and Doomguy does not go quietly. Instead, you get a horrifying scream that signals the end of your run. There is not much more I can say here, except get ready to hear it again and again. Now, no list surrounding player character deaths is complete without mentioning Dark Souls, and that's why it's the 8th entry on our list. Yeah, I know, it's not really a surprise. What sets the Souls games apart from others, especially when it comes to being defeated, is actually the absence of a lot of sound. Yes, you get that shattering sound that is accompanied by the "you died" text that appears on screen, but it's not just that part that is seared into your brain, right? It's the next few moments of muffled quiet with the text still on screen and the boss moving around out of focus.
Damn it, Jerry!
Those empty quiet moments that made you think, Why did I think I could defeat Ornstein and Smurf this time? It was those few seconds of quiet that made me realize that I was never going to face the final boss and never going to see the end credits roll. And I'm fine with that.
Are you crying? Am I crying? No, I'm not crying. You're crying.
Now, onto the penultimate entry in our list. Hands up if you've ever played Batman the video game. No, not the NES version. I'm talking about the one on the chunky grey brick that was difficult to play when there was even a slight change in lighting. Anyone? Just me? This platforming 2D side-scroller was an excellent early handheld version of the Caped Crusader, even if it seemed like he was most certainly causing his enemies to implode. But it's not only the villains that have a dramatic death, as when the Dark Knight himself comes to his untimely demise, it has an almost explosive sound whilst he does a backflip. But it's not his athletic demise that takes the cake, but the sorrowful music that plays just after. It's almost telling you to give up in song. Despite the game being only 40 minutes in length, my young brain could not seem to handle getting past the flying Batmobile stage. So yeah, I heard that tune a lot. Before we get into number 1, here are a few honourable mentions. In at number 1, we revisit the Man in the Cowl, but this time on a 3D plane. Batman Arkham Asylum was a revelation for third-person action titles, featuring combat mechanics that was so simple but very satisfying. At the risk of sounding cliche, this was the first game that truly made me feel like I was Batman.
I'm Batman!
Admit it, you felt that way too. Arkham Asylum kicked off the series with an absolute belter that was overflowing with Batman's cast of colourful criminals. By now, you must be thinking, I don't remember a distinct growl or grunt from the Caped Crusader when he falls, so I will admit that I was a bit more flexible for this entry. It's not the Dark Knight's downfall, but the memorable moments that follow. It's not exactly the sound effects, but the dialogue that is singed in the memory. The screen goes black, and in walks one of the Bat's infamous villains, with a small monologue about either how they defeated Batman, or just flat out mock him. Whilst the list of memorable lines is long, the one that sticks out is, unsurprisingly, the Joker as he turns to the screen and shouts,
I salute my fallen enemy!
That scene is seared into my brain because of how many times I failed a specific encounter. The one after Joker tells you about his insurance policy, an alarm collar that lets the other inmates know when you've taken one of them out. I remember sneaking around that large hall filled with goons and guns, trying for a silent takedown, but inevitably the alarms would go off and the gunfire would start. The screen goes black, and you know what happens next. This scene became a brutally familiar one. The list of death scenes is vast and honestly makes each defeat bittersweet and very entertaining, but it's all done at your expense. Way to rub it in, Rocksteady.
The bat is broken!
And there you have it, a trip down a particularly painful and nostalgic memory lane. Which of these infamous death sounds are seared into your brain? Are there any we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're here, why not smash that like button and subscribe for more content from Gamers Review Games.